Hey there! So now it's time for us to look at task 2 of the writing test. And what we're going to do is to write an answer for an agree-disagree essay, which is the most common type of question that you'll get in the IELTS writing test. So let's have a look at one. Here we have it, and it's comprised of two parts. We have the statement and then the question. So the statement is, teenagers should have regular exams at secondary school as this will prepare them better for life after leaving school. And the question is, to what extent do you agree or disagree? So this is typical in an agree-disagree question, but there are other question types. We could have, for example, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? Do you agree or disagree with this opinion? Do you agree or disagree? So these are all basically saying the same, which is, what is your opinion? Do you agree or do you disagree? And for the first two, it's also saying, well, to what extent do you agree? Do you completely agree? Do you completely disagree? Or do you partially agree? For example, you can see some reasons why regular exams at secondary school are a good thing, and some reasons why they are not a good thing. Okay, now one of the main considerations with IELTS essays is how do you structure your answer? And that's what we're going to look at now. So we have 3 different essay structures that we recommend. We have the completely agree or disagree structure. We have a 70-30 structure where we partially agree or partially disagree. So for example, we 70% agree and we 30% disagree with the opinion or the statement, which is very good for those of you that partially agree. And then we have the most complicated, most advanced structure, which is the 70-30 structure plus a rebuttal. Now, a rebuttal is basically when you show an opinion that you don't agree with, and then you say why you disagree with that opinion. Okay, if that's not clear now, then don't worry, because it will become clearer throughout this lesson, because that's the essay structure that we're going to focus on in this lesson. Okay, but first we're going to go into a bit more detail into these different essay structures. For the completely agree or disagree essay structure, which is the most basic, you have your introduction where you introduce the topic and you respond to the question. You have paragraph 1 where you say the first reason why you agree or the first reason why you disagree, if you completely disagree. And then the paragraph 2, you have the second reason why you agree. And then finally, you have the conclusion where you simply restate your opinion. Now, this is a fairly basic structure, and it's good for students that are aiming for a 5 or a 6. But if you're aiming for a 7, 8, or 9, then it's better to use a more advanced essay structure. So that is what we have here. We have the 70-30 structure. So here we have the introduction, again, where we introduce the topic and respond to the question. We have paragraph 1, where we say the first reason why we agree. Then we have paragraph 2, which is the second reason why you agree. Now, I've put this in brackets, and that means that if you're running out of time, remember, you only really have 35 to 40 minutes to write this. So if you're running out of time, don't do this paragraph. And then we have paragraph 3, which is one reason why some people disagree. So this is you saying, well, yes, I 70% agree, but here's a reason why people disagree. And then you write about it. And then you can say, well, it's a valid argument. And that's, again, what you would write in your conclusion when you restate your opinion. Remember, with IELTS essays, if the essay asks for your opinion, it's very important that you put it in your introduction and your conclusion as well. Okay, now we're going to look at the most advanced essay structure, which is the 70-30 structure with a rebuttal. So here we have the introduction again, same as always. We introduce the topic and respond to the question. In paragraph 1, we talk about the reasons why we agree. In paragraph 2, brackets, meaning if you don't have time, don't write this paragraph. A second reason why we agree. And then here is the crux, the most important paragraph. Paragraph 3. One reason why some people disagree, and then your rebuttal. So you say, this is the reason why people disagree. However, I don't think it's a good reason because, and then you explain why. Okay, and then don't forget you also need to write your conclusion, where you restate your opinion. So with all of these essay structures, the most important thing is that you finish them in time. It's better to finish a simple essay than to only write half of a complicated essay. I hope you understand. Now the question is, which essay structure should you choose? So this depends on how much time you have. So if you're fast at writing or typing and you have 40 minutes left, then go for a complicated structure. If you don't have very much time, then go for a simple structure. If your English is good and you're aiming for a high band score, then it's better to go for a more complicated structure. But if your English isn't so good and you're typically scoring 5 and struggling to get 6, then you really don't want to be writing a 70-30 or a 70-30 structure plus a rebuttal. However, when you're practicing at home before your test, it's a good idea to practice all of these structures so that you're familiar with them. Okay, we're going to write an essay together to this question. So the first thing that we would do is underline the key words that help us understand the question. So that's what I've done here. We've got teenagers should regular exams, prepare for life after leaving school. And before we start writing, it's a good idea to brainstorm ideas. So this is what you're going to write about in your answer. Now remember, you don't have much time for this in the exam, but in your practice, it's a good idea to spend a lot of time brainstorming your ideas so you become more familiar with the IELTS questions and what kind of ideas you can put in there in the right amount of time. So when you're brainstorming ideas, it's a good idea to think about the question from multiple perspectives. So for this question, well, what is life after leaving school? Some teenagers go on to university and some teenagers go on to start their career. They start work immediately. So here we're thinking about the question from multiple perspectives. The perspective of teenagers that go to university and the perspective of teenagers that go to start work. And then when we're planning, we would also write agree and disagree and to begin to think of ideas. So for the teenagers that go to university, well, if they have regular exams at high school, they have lots of practice and experience before difficult university exams. So that's a good thing. If they go to work, well, they're going to learn a lot of skills like time management and working under pressure from doing these frequent exams. And this is going to help them in their jobs in the future. However, for university students, well, there are also reasons why frequent exams are not a good thing. If high school students, teenagers, have spent all of their time cramming for exams, then they won't have time for real learning and developing critical thinking skills, which are important for university. And for teenagers that go to work, well, there are actually very few exams after high school in the world of work. So all of that time spent doing exams in high school is basically a waste of time. Well, that's one idea anyway. So for this essay that we're going to write, we're going to say that we agree with exams, so we agree with this statement, and we're going to use the 70-30 structure plus a rebuttal. So in our plan, we also need to think about what we're going to write in our rebuttal. And I suggest you do that by writing but. So here's an example. But it depends on how the exams are carried out. So remember, I agree, but I can see that a reason for disagreeing is that regular exams mean that students spend all of their time cramming for exams. And then I rebuttal this idea. I say, but it depends on how the exams are carried out. Exams can also be carried out to promote learning and to promote critical thinking skills. So here's my rebuttal. And I would also need a rebuttal for the other idea, which is that there are very few exams when students start work. So here's my rebuttal. But workers still benefit from the experience of having done exams at school because they've learned those skills. Now, when it comes to writing my essay, I can't write about all of these ideas, so I'm going to get rid of these two. We only need to have a rebuttal. We only need to show one reason why people disagree and then a rebuttal for that reason. So we're not going to cover these two. So let's have a look. We have our structure, which is the introduction, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, and then our conclusion. And we're going to go through each paragraph and write it together. So in our introduction, we need to do two things, which is introduce the topic and respond to the question. So here's an introduction. Regular exams are an important feature of secondary school education. However, there is debate as to whether they prepare teenagers for post-school life. I would argue that they do. Okay, simple introduction, but it does exactly these two things. It introduces the topic and responds to the question. Let's move on to paragraph 1. So in this paragraph, we're going to talk about the first reason why I agree with frequent exams at high school. Now, a body paragraph should do three things. It should have a topic sentence, a development, and ideally a link. Here's an example. In fact, I'm just going to let you read that. I'm not going to read out the whole paragraph. So feel free to pause this video and read this whole paragraph. And then we're going to go on to, so if you haven't paused the video, pause it now. We're going to continue on to paragraph 2. So this is the second reason why I agree. And again, we need to have a topic sentence, development, and link. And this is what I have written. Again, you can pause this video and read through it. Then afterwards, and this is the important paragraph, we're going to have paragraph 3, which is one reason why some people disagree, and then my rebuttal. Here it is. And I'm going to read it out this time. An argument against regular exams in school is that it moves the focus away from learning and onto preparing for exams. Exam-oriented education is often accused of teaching the test rather than providing students with a fulfilling learning experience. As a result, these students often lack the ability to evaluate and engage critically with new information. This can cause problems for students when they enter university and have to show critical thinking skills. So already we have our topic sentence, our development, and our link. And now we have our rebuttal in orange. Although obviously it's not going to be in orange in your essay. However, I would argue that this is a matter of how the tests are carried out. So we always start our rebuttal with a contrasting linker, like however, or nevertheless, or in contrast. Okay, however, I would argue that this is a matter of how tests are carried out. Education systems should be structured in such a way that tests and exams are a test of competence, knowledge, or at least remembered information, rather than being the main focus. The fact that exams and tests can be carried out poorly is not, in my opinion, a good argument for not having them. Okay, so here we've got a very good paragraph where we have a reason why some people disagree and then a rebuttal showing why we disagree with those people that disagree. A paragraph like this can really help you to get into that band 8 or band 9 writing score for IELTS. Now, don't forget, finally, we need the conclusion, and that is simple. It simply restates your position. Here it is. In conclusion, while I acknowledge that exam-oriented education can fail to prepare certain skills needed for post-school life, I would argue that teenagers should be given regular exams because it provides good practice for future testing in further education and develops a range of skills that will help teenagers when they start work. Okay, so notice all I've done is to restate my position and to summarize my ideas. I haven't introduced anything new in my conclusion, and that is important to do. Okay, right, it's time to look below this video and do the quizzes before moving on to writing your own answer. Okay, best of luck, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye.